Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just talked about a lot of the statement wins from this past weekend. Texas wins Red River. USC rolls over Michigan into the Notre Dame game. We had Georgia winning a weird one against Auburn, and I'll leave it at that for the time being. But let's go ahead and get into the final segment here. A little bit of a whip around, a number of games that we have to talk about really quickly here, and let's start with the biggest one in the group of five this past weekend. South Florida I put the scores in the wrong place. I apologize to South Florida. South Florida dominates North Texas 63 to 36. An incredible performance from South Florida. One of those teams that's going to be really, really hard to stop. If that offense gets going the way that they did in this football game, it's going to be a nightmare. They were tied in this game and they were down three. They were -3 in the turnover category, is the way I should put that. So at the end of the day, they were dominating this game from start to finish. It might not look like that on the when you look at the breakdown of the game. They were controlling this one from start to finish. North Texas is a good team. It's still a very young quarterback and it's still a very porous defense as of right now. It'll be interesting to see if they can get back into this thing, maybe make it to the American title in a rematch, but a doable schedule, still a team that I worry just a little bit. Youth of the quarterback, youth of the defense, definitely a question mark there, but South Florida continues to look the part, and one that they probably needed if they wanted to stay in the CFP race, they were able to get. Ohio State dominates Illinois 34 to 16, and this looks very modest compared to the Indiana score. I understand that. Ohio State rolled in this game. It was not even close from start to finish. The defense is an absolute nightmare. There's nothing that Illinois could do. It took them like 15 chances to get 1 yard, it felt like, on the goal line. It was ridiculous. It's insane to watch what this defense can do. Frankly, the reality of this team is the offense gives you 20 points, you're in really good shape. The defense is an absolute boa constrictor. There's nothing to be done against this defense in a lot of different cases. I think Davis and Igbinosun got away with a couple, if I'm being totally honest, but Arvell Reese is an absolute nightmare at the linebacker position, maybe the best linebacker in the country, as crazy as that sounds with how many great ones there are out there. Caleb Downs continues to be, in my opinion, the very best player in the entire country. It's ridiculous what this defense can do. It's ridiculous what Matt Patricia has been able to do and what all of these players said. You go back to last year, all of the talent on that defense, all of the guys that have played so much football on that defense. And now you look forward, I think these guys were just sitting on the sideline just getting pissed off. I think they just really wanted to be on the field. And now that they are, they're just laying out all of their frustration. And it comes at the detriment of guys like Luke Altmaier. But at the end of the day, Ohio State's going to be an absolute nightmare. They should very well be in the CFP moving forward. Illinois has kind of a manageable schedule. They have a bye and then they get a huge one against Washington State. They're a two-loss team with a lot of winnable games coming forward. I don't tend to believe they're going to make it to the CFP. I tend to believe they're going to lose at least one more, but this is a very interesting team moving forward that only lost to Ohio State and Indiana. I don't think that's a huge crime, but we'll see what happens with Illinois moving forward. Ohio State gets Wisconsin, Penn State, Purdue, UCLA, Rutgers, and Michigan. If they're not 11-0 going into Michigan, you got a big old problem over there in Columbus. I tend to believe they're going to be. And then you just got to see what happens there. You got to find a way to win that football game. I promise you we will get there and we'll talk about it plenty. But it's a very interesting time over there in Ohio State. They're rolling right along, and I don't think anyone has a real shot before Michigan. And I don't want to say that. I was going to say something. I'm going to leave it alone for the time being because it's gotten me in trouble the last couple of years. But Ole Miss escapes one against Washington State. This was a bad football game from Ole Miss, and it was all over the place from start to finish. Trinidad Chambliss was good enough. He made enough plays, especially with his legs in this game, but there was definitely a little bit of that, this is why the guy that was the backup start coming into the season in this game. There's no doubt about that. So that's definitely something to watch. The biggest takeaway for me was this defense for Ole Miss is just not the same as it was a year ago, mainly on the defensive line. They're just not as physical. They don't have as many NFL guys up there, and Washington State was able to take advantage. If you get UGA this weekend and you don't get after Gunnar Stockton, he's going to tear you apart. Now, it might not be absolutely ridiculous, might not be 350 yards, but that offense will do a lot of damage to you if you do not get after that quarterback. There's a couple holes on this Ole Miss team that make me feel not super confident that they will, but Ole Miss was able to get the win at the very least. You're able to get the win. You move forward to UGA with a huge one. We'll see what happens with this football team. I am very on the fence about what this Ole Miss team can be. I still think they could make it to the CFP. Feel a whole lot less confident than I did before, and frankly, I didn't feel all that confident before, as weird as that sounds. Texas A&M dominates Florida 34 to 17. Texas A&M is the best team in the SEC. I don't think this really has to be said at this point for a lot of people, but at the end of the day, I think it's them, Alabama, maybe Ole Miss if you want to throw them in there. I wouldn't at this point, but at the end of the day, Texas A&M is the best team in the SEC. If they can run the football at that level, it's going to be really hard to stop this offense because Marcel Reed can make a number of big-time plays. A couple of things that he just continuing to force the ball at times into positions where you probably don't need to. But at the end of the day, very talented kid. The run game is absolutely ridiculous. It sounds like Le'Veon Moss is going to be okay. We'll see how that kind of develops over the next little bit. But at the end of the day, a lot of juice around that program, and there very well should be. A lot of energy. They get Arkansas, I believe, this weekend, and Florida. It's a weird football team, man. They score touchdowns on two of their first two of their first three drives. DJ Lagway looks the part. Everything is rolling downhill, and they just kind of fall flat. They just don't score the rest of the day. Now, a lot of that has to do with A&M and the pass rush that they were able to put together, but at the end of the day, I think it's over. I think we can all say that now. I think Billy Napier held on by a string after they beat Texas. I think it's over. I think it doesn't really matter what happens against Mississippi State this upcoming weekend. I think he's fired by the end of this weekend, if I'm being totally honest. And frankly, I think this team might be done. I think there's a lot of different moments where you're thinking maybe this team is officially like just mentally checked out, just can't handle the pressure, can't handle the ridiculous nature of what they're dealing with right now. I think this might have been it. I think this might have been the moment where a lot of players just said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore. I don't know how I'm supposed to continue to fight for a team that probably is not going to be here pretty soon. I think Mississippi State might win that game, and I think Florida is probably going to get rid of Billy Napier here pretty soon. Texas Tech is ridiculous in every sense of the word, and they're one of those teams that they're just not a normal Big 12 roster in a lot of different ways. It's a total mismatch. Their defensive line against every offensive line in the conference. It is an absolute mismatch from start to finish in these football games. Now, Utah was able to hold up a little bit better, which makes a little bit of sense, but they dominated this team, and they're going to dominate just about every team moving forward, if I'm being totally honest. Arizona State this weekend's a huge one, and obviously that's going to be a more even matchup, but this Texas Tech defensive line is too much. It's an absolutely dominating group. The offensive line is much of the same. I don't know how a Big 12 team beats this team. And that's definitely me speaking a little bit prematurely, but it's a ridiculous football team that's playing such high level. They're running the football incredibly efficiently. Baron Morton leaves this game, and it doesn't matter. They continue to roll on now. We'll see what happens moving forward. I think he's going to play against Arizona State. I think Will Hammond would be good enough, if I'm being totally honest. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. If they beat Arizona State this weekend, it's really just BYU in their way of a 12-0 season and going to the Big 12 title. So it's a ridiculous team. Coming into the season, we knew it was really talented. They're also playing really together, and it's a terrifying sight for every other team in the Big 12. Tennessee wins the game 34-31 over Arkansas. This one looks a little bit closer than it was. Arkansas was down 17 with about 8 minutes left in this game, and then they were able to fight back into it. Now, they did have a shot to win this game. It's not to say that Arkansas couldn't have got the ball back late in this one and found a way to win it. So Tennessee's definitely toeing a line there. There's no doubt about that. But they're in a position where I think they just weren't going to be able to fully get back in this game, at least if Tennessee was going to be able to run the football at the end of it, and they were. So I do think Tennessee kind of controlled this game, didn't quite do enough defensively to make you feel confident, especially going against an Alabama team here pretty soon. But Tennessee, you just got to hope you get back Gibson and McCoy. If you get back Jermon McCoy and Ricky Gibson, a lot of really good things can happen for this football team because it's not going to be an elite defense. That's something that should be said right now. This is not going to be elite defense. It's not even going to be a good defense, if I'm being totally honest. What it can be is opportunistic. What it can be is Tyree West and Joshua Josephs creating all types of havoc, and then Colton Hood, Ricky Gibson, and Jermon McCoy making plays on the back end. It's not going to be perfect, but if you find a way to get a turnover per game, if you find a way to get 2 turnovers this weekend from Ty Simpson, you can win a lot of football games. That's very much up for debate, and that's very much something that not a lot of teams can do efficiently or do consistently, I should say. We'll see if Tennessee can pull it off. It's definitely a little bit of a tightrope walk, but I think they have enough defensively and obviously have the firepower offensively to get the win this weekend. You're probably going to need Jermon McCoy and Ricky Gibson back to do it. So we'll see what happens going forward. Tennessee's still in the mix. I'm a little bit more questionable about the Vols going forward, especially if they don't get those guys healthy. Iowa State falls on the road at Colorado, and I'm going to say something I really never thought I would say. I think the Deion Sanders story is being under talked about in college football. That sounds crazy. I understand that. There's a lot of Deion Sanders stories that might be talked about a little bit too much in the past. This one's incredible. This guy has gotten surgery after surgery. Before the year, in the middle of the year, this week, he got a surgery, and he still coaches on the weekend. He still wants to be around these players. He still finds a way to get back to practice in some cases. There's a lot of people in college football that like what they do. There's a lot of people in college football that enjoy this, that want to be around this sport. There's very few that like it more than Deion Sanders, and there's a lot of people that would tell you differently. This guy loves what he does. He loves his kids. He loves his players. I don't know what the future holds for him. I don't know if he's going to stick around. I don't know if he should stick around at Colorado with all of the health issues that he has going on. At the end of the day, when we lose Deion Sanders from the sidelines of college football, it is going to be a sad day. That is a special person. That is a guy that cares about his team, and I know a lot of people turn their nose up at that, but there are a lot of coaches that, I don't want to say don't care. That's not fair. There are a lot of coaches that care with all of their heart about the kids that they have on their roster. Deion Sanders is at the very top of that list to me. An incredible, incredible man, a man that goes through more on a weekly basis than all of us could probably imagine. And he finds a way to coach a football team every Saturday, and this one to a win over a top 25 team. Incredible. It's something that does not get talked about nearly enough throughout the season. I'm going to continue talking about it. If he's still on that sideline, he's still coaching teams even to a win or a loss. He deserves all types of credit because it's a ridiculously hard thing to do. But Iowa State, your hopes are on life support. I think that's understood around there right now. They get a bye, and then they get BYU, Arizona State, TCU. You win all of those, you're still firmly in the mix. You lose all of them, or you lose even one of them, you're probably out of this thing. But they're absolutely a team that can make something happen. Still a very special team. I think Matt Campbell might be heading somewhere else here pretty soon, but we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, a lot of jobs that will still come open. Colorado won't be elite this year, but they're really going to fight. It's really fun to watch this team. They get a bye, and then they get Utah. We'll see what happens. Just felt like it needed to be talked about. What Deion Sanders is going through on a daily basis and still being able to coach this team to a win is absolutely ridiculous, and it's the epitome of what college football is meant to be. A guy that loves his team, that loves his players, and goes out there every weekend not feeling 100% and finds a way to get it done. Pitt gets a win over Florida State 34-31. Does anyone want to try to explain to me what happened against Florida State and Alabama? Because that's not the same football team. I'm telling you right now. This is not one of those things where you're thinking, maybe Alabama's just not very good and Florida State just ran into better teams the rest of the way. That's not what happened. I'm just being totally honest with you. I don't think Pitt's as good as Alabama. I don't think Virginia's as good as Alabama. I think Florida State's not playing very good football, and I think they played really good football on that Saturday, the first week of the season. I don't know what happened. Here's the other thing that I want to say here. Florida State went 2-10 last year. I don't think that fully got the scope of how bad things were there. As crazy as that sounds, I don't think people fully understood the hole that Mike Norvell was digging himself out of. Here's the other reality of that. When you beat Alabama, everything changes. When you win that game in week 1, everything changes. Everyone starts looking at you as an ACC title contender, as someone that can make the CFP right after a 2-10 season. If you had told me coming into the year that Florida State was 3-3 after 6 weeks, I would have said, okay, that makes sense. They lost to Alabama, they lost to Miami, they lost to Pitt. That's okay. That's not ideal, but at the very least, if you're fighting in those games, you're playing good football. And they're fighting in these games. But when you beat Alabama, everything changes. So I don't know what to make of the season. I really don't. Going into the season, I would have said this is more than fine. After they beat Alabama, I would have said this was disaster. So I really don't know what to make of this. I don't know what to make of Mike Norvell's future over there in Tallahassee. I think he has enough equity buildup to get through this season. I think they got to get to 6-6, and I tend to believe they will. It's just one of those things where I don't know what to make of this Florida State team. I don't know how disappointed to be. I don't know how encouraged to be, because this is where I thought they would be in the preseason through 6 weeks, which is not the way I thought it would go down. So I'm really confused about what this team is going forward. I don't know what Mike Norvell's future holds. I tend to believe they'll get to a bowl game, and that'll be enough. I can't imagine Florida State fans will be too excited about that after the start to the season that they had. And then we just got to give some love to UCLA. The story continues. I don't know how, but they continue to win football games. And that offense is really good. It's just really, really, really solid. And obviously, Jerry Neuheisel getting a lot of love. Tim Skipper has done an incredible job with this football team as well. But this offense is a difference maker. And it's one of those offenses that obviously, against the Ohio States and the Oregons and the Indianas of the world, they're not going to play as good and as efficient football. They can do it against just about everyone else. They get Maryland this upcoming weekend at home. They can win that football game. There's no doubt about that. They can move to 3-4. I don't think they're going to make a bowl game at the end of this because they get Indiana, Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, and USC after that. So it's not going to get easier if you're UCLA, but at least this is a very fun run. Incredible job by what Tim Skipper and Jerry Neuheisel have been able to do. Just a weird team. One of those teams that pops up every year in college football where you don't know what happened. Well, you know what happened in this case, but something flips in that team and they just start playing really elite football. So incredible job by those two coaches, and we'll see what happens the rest of the way. Maybe they're the team that totally throws a wrench into Nebraska or Indiana or Washington or USC by the end of the year. I don't think they're going to do that to Ohio State, but we'll see what happens with the Bruins going forward. One of the best stories in the country, and I don't think it's going anywhere, at least on the offensive side of the ball. And then a little group of 6 scoreboard. Tulane gets a win by 7 points over East Carolina, one they badly needed if they wanted to stay in the American race. UNLV and Air Force played one of the weirder games that we've seen, 51-48 in favor of the running Rebels, one they badly needed as well. Marshall beating Old Dominion, dominating Old Dominion 48-24, probably knocks out Old Dominion from the group of 5 CFP talk. They were right kind of in that mix, probably dominating the Sun Belt would have to do it, but they're not going to be able to do that anymore. So that's a huge win for Marshall, one that kind of probably takes the Sun Belt out of the conversation. JMU's still in it, but probably knocks them out of the conversation, puts the American kind of on the forefront. Navy gets a win over Temple in dramatic fashion, and Blake Horvath probably had to answer to his mother at the end of that one. A little bit of a curse word at the end of that one, but an incredible performance by him. Troy comes back to beat Texas State in overtime, an incredible game there. Boise State gets a win to keep them in the mix for the Mountain West, but a little bit worried about that team going forward. South Dakota State is a team that a lot of people need to pay more attention to. They're playing really good football. Sean Lewis, the coordinator from Oregon or from Colorado that went over there, has done an incredible job there, and maybe they're the team at the end of all this that's standing upright. But an incredible weekend in the group of 6 and a lot of things that continue to happen over the next couple of weeks. But this was an awesome weekend. There was a lot of things that happened this weekend. Obviously, the firing of James Franklin kind of takes the cake there, but Indiana puts on a performance that they badly needed. Texas gets off the mat against Oklahoma. You have Alabama get a massive win on the road with another massive one against Tennessee here coming up. So this one's going to get weird. That's something I want to say before I get out of here. A quick PSA to college football fans. It's going to get really messy. And it's going to get really messy in a hurry. There's a lot of different things that are going to happen both on the football field and off of it over the next couple of weeks that are going to be weird. There's going to be coaching changes that you do not expect. There's going to be games every single week that you do not expect to be close that are really close. The SEC is not going to make any sense. The Big Ten, I'm sure, will have some twists and turns to it. The Big 12 and the ACC have those dominating teams, but how great are those teams when they go up against an SEC or a Big Ten type team? We won't know until the end of the year. It's going to get weird. And the biggest thing to keep in mind here, if your football team plays on Saturday and they find a way to win, don't be mad. I don't care what the score is. I don't care what the context of the football game is. If they win by 1 point, if they win by 65 points, it does not matter. It is going to be really hard to win on Saturdays going forward in this sport. It's going to be really hard to find a way to get through the season unscathed. If you find a way to do it, if your team finds a way to win, take it and sprint the other direction because it is going to get really messy for a lot of football teams. Some teams that are playing incredible football right now won't finish in the CFP. Some teams that are not playing incredible football will find their way into the dance. It is going to get weird. It's going to get crazy. There's going to be a number of job openings that maybe you expect, maybe you don't expect going forward. All that to say, enjoy your Saturdays. Find a way. If your team finds a way to win, enjoy it, take it, run the other direction, and hope that your coach sticks around at the end of this year. It is going to get weird. It's going to get messy. Just settle in. Strap in just a little bit. It's going to get weird, and we'll have to find a way to see what the end of the season looks like at the end of this. But I have to imagine there's a couple of teams that are undefeated right now that are not going to end the season even with less than 2 losses. I think there's teams with 2 losses right now that could find their way to the CFP and everything in between. Just settle in. Hope that your team wins every Saturday. If they do, take it. Be okay with that no matter how you got it. But an incredible weekend on the docket. We got some huge games that will totally define the CFP conversation going forward. And I have to imagine those will go a little bit weird as well, and maybe a couple other coach firings to talk about. But we'll be back on Thursday to talk about all the games coming up. We'll break them all down. We'll get into maybe some other headlines that have come up over the next couple of days. But thank you so much for tuning in to Just Another College Football Podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment, do all of that stuff. It means the world to me. It does help me out a ton over here. But thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you guys on Thursday to break down a ridiculous Week 8 slate.